I was left with nothing else to do after washing the dishes and cleaning the room. The mountain dogs and police were protecting me. Just in case, I figured I should leave something behind for Satoko. Should I write down some recipes for her in the notebook? Will she be happy if I leave a will for her? I laughed at my own foolishness. No one would be happy to read a will. If I die, they'll be devastated, and wonder why I didn't talk to them. That's exactly how I felt when Satoko didn't ask for any help when her uncle was abusing her. I wonder, will I be killed before Satoko even comes home? My memories of these days are never very clear. The day I die is always vague in my recollections. It's fine if I'm murdered before Satoko gets home. But if I'm murdered after, then would they kill her along with me? I don't want that to happen. It's bad enough already that I end up killed. If Satoko's murdered along with me each time, that would be too much to bear. Just how much have I ignored other people's sadness with that rash idea that the world ends when I die? Thinking about that made me feel truly ashamed of myself. I turned on the TV to try and reduce the silence, but it didn't help at all. Worse, not only did the TV not help with my fears, it felt like it symbolized Hanyu and my allies, making me feel even more unpleasant. It was past lunchtime, nearly 3 p.m. School should be out now. I'm not there today, so they probably won't do a club activity. Satoko should be home shortly. It seems I'm going to survive until she gets home after all. If she comes home and asks me what's troubling me, I might end up telling her the truth. If I talk to someone, that person will be demoned away by the mountain dogs. That's why I've never spoken to anyone about it. I didn't want my friends to get into danger. But if Satoko was also murdered likewise in every world because she was involved with me, then we're doomed to share the same fate. It's better to know the truth than to be killed without knowing what's going on. But I'm under very strict security right now. I might be able to survive in this world. If that's the case, I shouldn't talk to Satoko about it. It won't be so easy to talk to my friends after all. Moments later, I heard a surprised yell of Satoko's coming from downstairs. Oh yeah, because there's an officer down in the first floor. She'd returned. It sounded like she was scared to see a stranger in our home. I'd have to tell her that the police were here. That would be tantamount to telling her that someone is out to kill me. I don't know how to explain it to her. I don't know how to explain it to her, or how much I should tell her. However, my thoughts were soon interrupted by the noise of a crowd. Satoko hadn't come home alone.
ただいまでございますのよ。それよりリカ、下のおまわりさんは何なんですの？
私服警官が護衛してるなんてどういうわけよ。あんた一体何をしでかしたの？
みーちゃん聞くこと違う。一体何があったのリカちゃん。
境内の中にも見慣れない人がいました。
Oh my god, it's been so long since I last seen you. I'm sorry for interrupting, but oh my god. You know, after a few weeks of watching Go, for which I have barred myself the previous day from watching the rest of, yes, I'm filming this video a day after I had barred myself from watching Go, so I don't know what's happened in Go, but anyways, It's been forever since I seen Shion. That's the point I'm trying to get at. It's been fucking forever since I last seen her. I don't know why I feel so refreshed right now, but welcome back, Shion. Welcome back.
あれも私服警官ですか？ただごとじゃないんですけど。
俺たち、リカちゃんが何を悩んでるのか知らないが、みんなで励まそうって思ってきたんだ。でもどうやら、そんな悠長な事態じゃねえようだな。
Indeed. Don't lie. Don't lie. I couldn't stop laughing. Upon seeing everyone rush into my house, all asking the same questions. It made me feel as though being depressed all day had just been a waste of time.
リカ、笑ってる場合じゃありませんでしたよ。どういうことなのか説明してくださいまし。どうもこうもないのです。今日は僕が殺される日なのです。
Why are you saying that so casually, girl? Oh my god! You know, that is probably one of the most casual ways of saying I'm getting murdered today that I've ever heard. Well, I just said it in a very casual way too. Oops.
Huh?
Everyone already knew that I'd been telling people about how I was going to be killed. But they were surprised to hear it from my own mouth.
なあ、リカちゃん。俺は確かに昨日、リカちゃんから聞いた。自分は誰かに殺されるみたいな話をな。でも、それはリカちゃんの冗談みたいなもんだと思ってた。だがな、もうごまかすのはなしだぜ。話してもらうぜ。
Keiichi spoke with a harsh tone, as though I made him upset. As my friend, he must think that it's unforgivable that I didn't talk to him about it. He wasn't the only one feeling that way, though. Every single one of them was looking at me with worried expressions on their faces.
リカ、私はみんなに助けてもらいましたの。だから、私もみんなのために何かの助けをしたいんですのよ。気持ちだけで嬉しいのです。リカが自分で私に言いましたのよ。戦う勇気を持てと。あなたは自分でそう私に言っておきながら実践していないではございませんの。
Satsuko pointed out something that I've already realized. I had no way to argue back.
リカちゃんは話せば巻き込まれるって言ったんだよね。リカちゃんが話さなくても私たちは巻き込まれる気でいるんだよ。
I mean, she's not wrong. She is not wrong. They walked into Rika and Satsuko's house, so technically they're already sort of fucked by the mountain dogs already. Like, they enter the house. They're probably going to get assassinated even if Rika didn't tell them anything. So yeah, basically, they would have been fucked either way, whether or not Rika told them what was going on. That's one thing I want to point out here.
そうさ。俺たちは仲間で部活のメンバーなんだよ。リカちゃんの危機はメンバー全体の危機さ。かつてサトコが危機だった時もメンバー全体の危機として戦った。それと同じだよ。
命を狙われるとか物騒な話になれば、ますます園崎家の出番だと思いますけれど。それこそ物騒な話に及ぶなら、警察より頼もしいですよ。ねえおね。そうだよ。こういうことこそ相談してほしいね。何をトラブったの？リカちゃんを殺すって脅迫するなんて、とんでもない野郎だよ。
まあ、リカちゃんの口の重さを見る限り、心当たりがないのか薄いのかのどちらかだな。 相手が分かってりゃ楽な話なんだからな。
Damn! Holy crap, Keiichi's the one to point this out? Keiichi's the one who pointed this out! I mean, it's not that hard to guess that Rika doesn't know who's trying to kill her. I guess it's not that hard, but I'm still kind of surprised that Keiichi is the one to point this out and, you know, the first one to say it. I don't know why, but I'm surprised that Keiichi's the first one to say it.
みんなは鋭いので、僕が何も話さなくても、勝手に話が進んでしまうのです。リカ、はぐらかさないでほしいですわよ。ちゃんとお話しなさいませ。一体何があったんですの？これはどういうことなんですの？警察が来るなんてよっぽどのことですのよ。警察には話せて、どうして私たちに話してくれませんの？私たちには話しにくい理由なの？リカに話しにくいようなやましい理由なんてあるわけありませんでしたよ。
落ち着け、聡子。リカちゃんはこう見えても御三家の当主なんだぞ。お社様の生まれ変わりなんて呼ばれて年寄り連中に盲信されてるんだ。俺たちの想像のつかないところで何か厄介なことに巻き込まれていたということもあるかもしれない。そういうごたごたをこれからこの村で楽しく過ごしていこうっていう俺たちに話したくなかったとかそういうのじゃないのか？
You know, for wild guesses, Keiichi kinda hit it on the mark. For wild guesses, he hit it on the mark. And I'm surprised since it's Keiichi hitting all the marks right here. Because usually it would be like Rena doing this. Like, usually Rena would be the one to point this stuff out. But it's Keiichi and Minagoroshi. Holy shit. You know, sometimes I'm surprised by how smart Keiichi is, because I always thought he was the dumb protagonist for some reason, but no. As proven in the answer arcs, Keiichi's a lot smarter than I put him out to be.
村とリカちゃまに関わるやばい話ですか。となると、お社様を盲信する年寄り連中の絡みとしか思えません。ってことは、時期的に考えて、お社様のたたり関係か。あれだ。富武さんと高野さんが殺された件絡みじゃないかな。
どうして富武さんたちが殺された事件がリカちゃんに関連して、リカちゃんが命を狙われなくちゃならないの？話が突飛すぎるよ。
命が狙われてるって時点で十分話がぶっ飛んでる。俺たちが普段知る以上のしがらみがリカちゃんにあって、それを話せないってことなんだろうな。ビンゴだろ。
Who are you?
あまり楽しい話じゃないから、むしろ仲間には話せないってんだろ。
Are you really Keiichi? Because you're being way too smart. That it practically hides every sense of the character I thought you were. You're more insightful and much more, you know, understanding of Rika. And you're the same guy who absolutely fucked up in Watanagashi. And Onikakushi. Well, Onikakushi, well, there's some things that explain why Keiichi did what he did in Onikakushi, but Minagoroshi Keiichi, he's like a totally different person. Like, yes, he still has his charismatic, dumb leader type character to him, but there's an additional intelligence to him now. And insightfulness. Maybe it's not intelligence, but more, he's just insightful. Yeah, it's not intelligence that I was trying to say. I feel bad now since I was saying intelligence, but no. He's more insightful. He is just more insightful of other people.
信じられないですわ。本当なんですの、リカ。何か村とか富時さんたちの事件とかそういうのが関係していますの？
I remained silent, but with my mouth open. I hadn't answered any of their questions, but they continued to ask, and had eventually hit the nail on the head. It was more surprising than anything. But then again, these are, after all, my beloved clubmates. I laughed once more. My issues and my secrets are so devastating to me, but they stopped sounding like such a big deal when everyone talked about them together. They knew exactly what was going on without me saying a word. In that moment, I just realized how powerless I am. I had to tip my hat to them. Everything seemed so foolish now. And so, I decided to just tell them everything.
話せと言うなら、話しますです。
Here we go!
でも、どうせ信じられませんのです。
信じるさ。リカちゃんが真実を語る限り、俺たちは疑わない。
Everyone's expressions turned grave as they vowed not to make light of anything I told them. And so, I'm going to tell them everything. I want to see if they really will believe me or not.
なら、話します。
Here we go.
多分、私は、富武と高野を殺した犯人に狙われています。
ってことは、それって連続開始事件の真犯人ってこと？
それはわかりません。ですが、その可能性もあります。意味がわかりづらいですわね。どうして富武さんや高野さんを殺した人がさらに理香も殺さないといけませんの
Uishi thinks Takano is the culprit. Okanogi thinks that Irie is the culprit. Either way, it sounds like someone from Tokyo is trying to kill me. I can't tell if it's Takano or Irie, but I do know that, to them, I'm like a trump card. In order to explain everything, I need to talk to them about the relationship between Himizawa, Tokyo, and the Irie clinic. I don't think they'll believe me. It's such a ridiculous story. But who would ever believe it, if not my friends?
話せば、みんな巻き込まれますです。いいのですか？
いいに決まってるぜ。リカちゃんが巻き込まれた時点で、すでに俺たちも巻き込まれているんだからな。
Plus, like I said before, they're already pretty screwed since they entered the house. They're already pretty screwed. Everyone nodded at Keiichi's words.
では、話しますです。
Here we go. I'm going to see how everyone reacts. I'm going to ascertain what friendship is all about. With a nod of my own, I opened my mouth and began to explain.
ひなみ沢には、ある特別な病気があるのです。その病気の名前は、仮なのか正式なのかわかりませんですが、ひなみ沢症候群と呼ばれていますです。
Everyone glanced back and forth at each other when I mentioned the term. They never heard of it before. The name Hinamizawa syndrome has actually been around since before the war. It's the general term for the severe homesickness and mental instability that people from Himizawa experience when outside of the village. People in Himizawa have refused to leave the village since the era of Onigafuchi. The villagers believe that they'd be cursed by Oyashio-sama if they left, and people who did often came back because of that curse. In general, it used to be thought of as only severe homesickness. But during the war, soldiers from Himizawa became mentally deranged in faraway places. That does sometimes happen in war. What was unique about the soldiers from Himizawa was the way that they killed their own comrades and committed suicide at the end. One doctor became curious about these cases and studied those soldiers. That's when they found out that it was actually a disease only found in Himizawa. According to this doctor, their strange behavior was not the result of their culture. It was a mental disease triggered by external circumstances. A mental disease with an external cause is different from a psychological illness. It's the result of some kind of physical disorder, and it causes people to become mentally unstable when something triggers it. There are 3 categories of externally caused mental diseases: traumatically induced, substance abuse induced, and chemical imbalance induced. Traumatically induced disorders are cases resulting from damage to the brain from trauma or infection that influences the mind. This is the reason personalities can change as a result of head injuries. Substance abuse, as the name suggests, refers to cases where drugs, especially alcohol or stimulants, have influenced the mind. The last category is chemical imbalances. These are cases where some ailment in the patient's body causes abnormal secretions of bodily chemicals which then influences the brain functions. This may sound odd, but it's been said that people tend to become depressed when they have a cold. We've all experienced the ways in which physical sickness can cause a buildup of negative emotions. However, with chemical imbalances, the cause is more direct. People's emotions aren't born from our hearts. Everyone should know, logically, that they're the result of chemicals secreted by the organs in our body as necessary. So when the organs operating the secretion of those emotional controllers malfunction, it causes them to secrete abnormal amounts. The thyroid gland, for example, secretes hormones that regulate emotions. When that gland is defective, the balance of those hormones becomes unstable. This can cause people to not only have a physical sickness, but also a mental sickness such as depression. People don't get mentally ill just because of mental problems. Human beings are made out of meat. We get mentally ill when that meat is defective. The doctors studying Himizawa syndrome also came up with a theory. He suggested that there is a pathogen endemic to Himizawa that, if its hosts stray too far from home, affects the chemicals in their brain and causes them to hallucinate. The villagers' belief in Oyashiro-sama is certainly related to this endemic disease. People in Oyafuchi village knew about this syndrome. They knew that they couldn't survive outside the village. They also didn't want anyone else to enter the village, because they would get infected too. They took this disease as a curse, not a sickness. The most significant symptoms of this disease are antisocial behavior and an extreme persecution complex. The eventual suicide caused by the defects in the lymph nodes are also another unique characteristic. The unusual behavior of terminal patients is what inspired the legend of the demons coming out of the swamp and attacking the villagers. Basically, sick villagers developed severe persecution complexes and wound up killing other villagers. After a long time, survivors of the disease started to comprehend its rules. They discovered that the disease is incurable once you contact it. That's why they started barring outsiders from entering the village. Also, once you become ill, you will begin developing a persecution complex. this can happen to anyone in the village. The doctrine of Oshio-sama says that the blood of humans and demons was mixed together, and that Oshio-sama has control over the violent blood of the demons. Sorry for the burp. People said that you'd be cursed if you didn't follow Oshio-sama's rules. That could also be understood to mean that as long as you followed Oshio-sama's rules, you could cope with this endemic disease. This is what was meant by the scripture in Oshio-sama's legend that said they appeared, unified the humans and demons, and made them live together in this village. Then, there was the most important part, the rules to prevent symptoms from appearing. Those rules are the taboos, and people were strictly taught that Oshio-sama would curse them if they broke those rules. The horrible, bloody traditions of the village were probably performed in order to force people to respect these taboos. There are several ways to keep the disease under control, but there are two main conditions for doing so. The first one is to prevent suspicion. When the villagers are suspicious of someone, it can trigger their persecution complex, which can lead to them developing terminal symptoms. That's why they made sure to have such a tightly knit community, so that people wouldn't suspect each other. Since the terror of Oshio-sama's curse is emphasized, many don't know this, but she's also a god of marriage and neighborly love. However, this condition is not as important as the other one. Indeed, Oshio-sama isn't even recognized as a god of friendship in Hinamizawa anymore, and is worshipped as such in Okunomiya's Hirasaka district. Now, for the other condition. This one is much clearer, and was practiced more strictly. If the villagers leave Hinamizawa, they will fall ill quickly, proportional to the distance from the village. Villagers nowadays will not get sick as rapidly, even if they leave town, or even go out of the country for a long time. However, long ago, they would fall ill as soon as they left the village. It's very unfortunate that Keiji got infected so soon after he moved to the village. It was also very unfortunate that he got sick just because he left the village for a few days to go to his relative's funeral in that one world. Oh! That explains some things from Orikakushi! Holy crap, I didn't even realize that detail! He left to go to a funeral and came back, but he was heavily affected by Hinamizawa syndrome! I'm gonna reread this line again, but whoa! It was also very unfortunate that he got sick just because he left the village for a few days to go to his relative's funeral in that one world. That's why Hanyu felt so bad for him that time, and kept on apologizing over and over. Oh my god, I didn't even know this detail! I didn't even realize this detail! Oh my god! I didn't even realize this! Oh my god! This is why I like Minagoroshi! Oh my god, the visual novel's making me love this arc even more. I know some people think Minagoroshi is boring in visual novel form, but I'm really enjoying it. Although, no matter how much she apologized, he never heard her voice. On the train ride back home, he heard her. On the train ride back home, he heard her. I think so, yes. Yeah. Or am I remembering the manga? Hold on. I'm sorry, but I need to do a little sidetrack for a second here. I'm gonna go on a sidetrack real quick, just so you know, see if I'm correct on a point I was making, because I think he was on the train where he keeps on hearing a girl say, I'm sorry. Yes, he was! He was on the train. Yeah. As you can see in these manga panels right here, he's on a train, and he keeps on hearing someone say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, while he was on the train at the beginning of Onikakushi. Oh my god. At the beginning of Onikakushi, he was on the train, and he was hearing Hanyu say, I'm sorry, multiple times as he was heading home back to Himizawa after his relative's funeral. Oh my god. Wow, I didn't even realize that detail myself. Sorry I got a little excited there. Yeah, I'm sorry that I got a little bit excited there, but I did not realize that. I did not realize that until now. Oh man! Oh man! Wow. Minagoroshi's awesome. Minagoroshi's awesome. It connects everything together. This turned into a long discussion, but these rules etched around Orishio-sama's curse represent the ancient wisdom of how to cope with Himizawa syndrome. Is there any way to use this mental disease for military purposes? The aforementioned doctor insisted there was, but the military didn't listen to him at all at the time. They were interested in developing a weapon that could make a drastic change to the war efforts. They didn't have any money to spare for the research of this strange disease. In this way, research on Himizawa syndrome was abandoned. Then the war ended. Japan started its reconstruction under American leadership. However, some powerful people in the political world didn't want to accept the American way of thinking. Some of them were fired by the GHQ, but they still stayed on as advisors to the government, since Japan has a culture of respecting the elderly. Eventually, a political organization was formed, the object of which was to restore Japan to the way it was before the war. In the beginning, this organization was a very small group. It was just a gathering of 2 or 3 individuals who shared the same ideals, blowing hot air at a restaurant. Those 2 or 3 hit it off with each other and grew to the size of a class reunion. That group became a rather sizable organization, eventually becoming a political one. Well, it would be more accurate to call them a secret society. This secret society eventually came to be called by the name of the place where it was based, Tokyo. There were many mysteries about. There are many mysteries about Tokyo. One thing I knew for sure is that it was composed of old men from Japan's political stage, ones with strong power to indirectly influence the government and vast assets that meant they could work from the shadows. They were also connected to various corporations, and their goal was to return Japan to the way it was before the war. Of course, that was a pretty ridiculous goal. It was nothing more than an idea in their minds immediately after the war, back when they were still bowing their heads to the occupation forces of those white barbarians. Once Japan's post-war reconstruction began, Tokyo suddenly became a shell of its former self. But it didn't totally become a shell. It cooled the fat. Japan regained its peace, and years passed. However, some people still continued to believe that Japan had been better before the war, and they were determined to return the country to those times. So this Tokyo plotted how to restore pre-war Japan from many angles. They approached the problem economically, internationally, and militarily as well. Japan has no nuclear armaments due to the 3 non-nuclear principles. In other words, this country has to brown-nose America as long as they hold nuclear weapons. The number 1 priority of Tokyo is to be dependent from America. They want this country to be on equal footing, and to obtain a weapon of mass destruction that isn't nuclear in nature. That was the reason why they started thinking about utilizing Himizawa syndrome. However, they couldn't study this disease openly. In order to utilize it for military purposes, they had to hide the existence of the disease itself. So, they enlisted one young researcher, Kyosuke Irie. I need to make it clear that Irie isn't some far-right supporter of this secret society. He's just a young, capable doctor and an earnest researcher. He published an innovative thesis, but other academics thought he was too radical. However, that convinced Tokyo that he was the only researcher suitable to study Himizawa syndrome. As someone young and ambitious, Irie was thrilled to take on the project of studying this rare disease with a large budget, a large staff, and his own facility. But researching the disease would mean that he'd end up infected too. No one would want to take on such dangerous research. He really was too young, with his other option being wearing down his youth working hard at the night shift for a local practice. He wanted to answer the expectations of the sponsor who carefully selected him. In the end, Irie was able to uncover that, as hypothesized, the Himizawa syndrome was a unique infectious disease, and he developed both a treatment and a vaccine. Irie was extremely talented. The Irie Institute was formed to study the disease. Irie was nominally the head of the organization, but Tokyo still sent out a supervisor because when all was said and done, he was just a researcher. That supervisor was Mio Takano. Takano's job at the Institute was to act as a go-between for Tokyo and Irie, manage the research progress, and preserve its secrecy. The latter was the most important part of her job. She had to do her best to prevent people from finding out that Irie was researching the disease, or even that the disease exists at all. The Mountain Dogs were formed for that purpose. They were under Takano's command, and their job is to prevent the Institute's secrets from being discovered. The Mountain Dogs are one special forces unit specializing in unconventional warfare and owned by Tokyo with its vast influence on the SDF. Tokyo had set their eyes on the likelihood that a small, elite squad of covert operatives would be a trump card in the anti-nuke era. So they vigorously investigated those options. This was a worldwide trend. Since the Cold War, everyone avoided sending troops directly to their enemy's doorstep. Japan was also trying to be a part of that world. As a result, by 1983, even the police had been forming secret special forces units. Not political forces, special forces. Prefectural Police Squad 2, the ones who intervened when Rena laid siege to her school, changed their name to Zero Company, and grew into an anti-terrorism squad that handled hijackings around the Kansai airport area. The National Police Agency Squad 6 was formed as a counter-terrorism squad for the Narita Airport too, and they later changed their name to 7th Company as well. They theorized that in a world where nations possess nukes that they can't use, small elite special forces disrupting metropolitan areas would be the way of waging war. So in 1977, they developed the SAT's predecessor, the Special Task Force SAP, to serve as the National Police Agency's trump card in securing the peace. Likewise, the Japan Coast Guard established their Special Task Force, the SST, in anticipation of the unconventional warfare on the coasts. There are several known Special Forces units in Japan. When they hear phrases like Special Forces, most people tend to think of a movie or a comic book. However, these units actually exist, and are protecting Japan in secret. During the famous incident of suspicious boats off the coast of Noto Peninsula, the news reported that the boats sank it before the helicopter squad trained in gun battles. I'm gonna repeat this line. During the famous incident of suspicious boats off the coast of Noto Peninsula, the news reported that the boats sank before the helicopter squad trained in gun battles, so the squad was recalled. But that was because the Coast Guard's SST acted. However, the news never mentions the SST or any other Special Forces unit. All of these units were established after Tokyo made a suggestion about it to the government. Researching military tactics under the name of peace and order worked perfectly for Tokyo. But since the mid-century anti-war movement made people resent those forces, these special units have been kept secret as of 1983. Furthermore, these units are not all formed under the jurisdiction of the police. There are still many other military units that are kept secret from the average citizen. The Mountain Dogs are actually one of those special units. They specialize in kidnapping, espionage, and preserving secrecy. You might as well call them an assassination unit. They were around during the dam conflict as well. Tokyo worked to put an end to the dam project because of the impact it would have on Irie's research. The Mountain Dogs were the ones who kidnapped the Minister of Construction's grandson. Most people believe that the Sonozaki family was at the center of the movement, but in reality, the Mountain Dogs were responsible for many of the things the Sonozakis were accused of. In that sense, the existence of the Sonozaki family was an advantage to the dogs. Their main job after the dam conflict ended has been to continue keeping the disease hidden from the public. With the spread of information networks in the modern age, the media jumped onto any unusual incident and quickly aired it to the whole nation. Tokyo doesn't want the disease to be known nationwide, since they're trying to utilize it for their own purposes. The main task of the Mountain Dogs is to kidnap people suffering from Higurashi syndrome. They pose as gardeners, but in actuality, they patrol the village to make sure nothing strange happens. They're the ones who demon away people who go missing. They're probably also involved in some of the mysterious deaths too. The last important person is Jiro Tomitake. I don't know his real name. He was an auditor who was sent from Tokyo 4 times a year. He came to check on the progress of the research, and outlined requests from Tokyo. He discussed the research budget with Irie too. He also got the observation report on Irie from Takano. That was his purpose. Irie started out by studying the autopsy results of dead villagers, and he discovered many answers from that. In 1979, the Mountain Dogs kidnapped the culprit behind the murder of the construction chief, who was a terminal patient of Higurashi syndrome. The nature of the disease was dramatically clarified. Their research made rapid progress after that, and they discovered a vaccine, medication, and other methods of treatment for the disease. At the same time, they continued to investigate how to utilize it for military purposes. One of the interesting findings of the research was that the pathogen can only be found when the patient is still alive. On top of that, they couldn't detect the presence of the pathogen at all unless they used a certain inhumane method. In other words, it's virtually impossible to detect the pathogen by normal means. It left almost no trace, and the usual symptoms it produced seemed like voluntary behavior, so they concluded that the disease could be used to their advantage. However, Tokyo has been going through some changes. It's been almost 50 years since the war ended. The leaders in shadows behind Japan's government who ruled from the center of Tokyo began growing infirm and opening up seats, steadily passing their leadership to the new generation. The whole organization has started to shift. Of course, the purpose of Tokyo has stayed the same. It's still a secret society of ultra-nationalists who want Japan to be at the top of the world. However, their ambition to start a war with America and take over the world has diminished. Tokyo has directed its priorities towards the economy, international affairs, and education. That doesn't mean that those ambitions are gone entirely, however. Several seniors still alive retain those ambitions. Tokyo continues to finance military research. But for the present-day Tokyo, Irie's research is actually something of an embarrassment. The new Tokyo is no longer interested in this project, and they announced they're going to cut their budget as soon as those seniors pass away. However, Irie objected to that plan. He strongly appealed for the continuation of his research. This is what Okunogi was talking about. Irie is in disagreement with Tokyo. Irie's research has been making great progress. They discover various treatments and testing methods, and he's even starting to develop a treatment plan for the whole village. If they cut his funding, Irie's research would end without any results. Tokyo had a discussion with Irie through Tomitake, and they decided to shut down his research partially, but not fully. However, they told him to immediately stop researching military applications of the disease, and destroy all the research data related to that. He had little interest in weaponizing the disease anyway, so Irie accepted those terms right away. Tokyo probably believed that it was better to let him find a cure for the disease than to terminate the project entirely. At this point, Irie considers himself as one of the villagers. Perhaps exterminating the disease infecting the villagers without their knowledge is his way of atoning for using the village to advance his research and reputation. Both Tokyo and Irie agreed to fully terminate his research as soon as he discovered a way to completely eradicate Himizawa syndrome. Irie made a plan for the next 3 years, and he promised them that he would find a resolution by 1986 at the latest. The meeting they had this June was to discuss the plan and budget for the next 3 years. Which brings us back to the beginning. One theory goes that Irie is in opposition with Tokyo, and as his trump card, he's planning to kill Rika Furude. The other theory is that Hakuno killed Tomitake, and as a trump card, she's going to kill Rika Furude. I suppose I need to explain why Rika Furude can be a trump card. The answer to that lies in the ancient traditions of Himizawa. I thought this was Rika. Wait, no, this is still Rika narrating, so I'm gonna continue on with my softer voice, but still. Damn, that's a lot of information coming at once, but I'm really liking the information. I find this to be really interesting. I am finding this to be super interesting, to be fully honest here. The answer to that lies in the ancient traditions of Himizawa. Supposedly, members of the Furude family have the blood of Orishio-sama in their veins. I explained earlier that Orishio-sama was made up as a method for having people cope with the disease. However, that's actually not true. For the demons, the pathogens, to survive, a certain being must be present. That being is the successor of the Furude family line. The truth behind the advent of Orishio-sama and the coexistence of humans and demons is that Orishio-sama was actually the queen of the village. According to Irie's research, Rika is adored by the whole village not only because she is a charming little girl, but because she's the queen carrier. Infected patients are unconsciously driven to protect their queen. Irie says that this is done with pheromones. Rika Furude's mother was also adored by everyone since she was little. However, as soon as she gave birth, people's attention quickly shifted to Rika. Irie calls it the succession of the throne. The queen is a precious existence to the people in this village. There are theories that carriers of the disease are actually unable to survive when away from the queen. Not from the village itself. Irie's research indicates that the queen can only survive in Himizawa, and infected patients can only stay alive when they're around her. For some reason, I'm thinking about bees right now. But this is just a theory. A Irie theory. Surprisingly, however, the doctor who first discovered this syndrome was also aware of the existence of the queen. That doctor was knowledgeable about Himizawa's culture, and he was interested in how much value the village placed on the Furude family. He theorized that the queen lying in the Furude bloodline might have the power to manipulate the whole village. The truth is still unknown, but perhaps the Furude family really has held such power since ancient times. Miraculous power that would make them perfect for serving in the priesthood. Although the only thing Rika can do is be doted upon by the villagers. If all this is true, then the question is what would happen if the queen disappeared from the village? During the war, a doctor prophesied that if the queen were to die, then all the infected would show terminal symptoms, and the whole village would be wiped out. He advocated for strict preservation of the queen's host. Rika is important to Tokyo not only because Irie found many answers after running tests on her body. If Rika Furude dies, the 2,000 people in Himizawa will turn into demons. It would happen too fast for people to even realize that they were getting sick. They will each be overcome with a violent persecution complex and start killing each other out of fear. This is why the mountain dogs are protecting the queen, Rika Furude. Her death spells the end of the whole village. That's why Rika Furude is the trump card for those who know that she's the center of the whole epidemic. This is the story of Himizawa. Our tale begins in June 1983. Tokyo's liaison, Tomatake, was found dead of the disease, even though he was vaccinated against it. On the same night, Takano was also kidnapped and murdered. Though I don't know for sure if she's really dead or not. Rika Furude is also going to be murdered soon enough. While I've suspected Irie and Takano, this was my first time doubting Tokyo. I always thought that they were on my side. They had to be. My death would lead to nothing but disaster. At the same time, there might be people within Tokyo who could use my death as a trump card. I never considered that there were opposing factions within Tokyo. I guess I was naive enough to not realize that Tokyo had internal problems due to the generation gap. Anyway, I wouldn't be feeling this way if I didn't suspect that Takano might still be alive. I feel like I'm starting to see the greater picture. It's possible, too, that Takano is the victim, and Irie is the bad guy. The mountain dogs might be on my side, or they might be assassins who are trying to kill me. I was too scared to choose a wine that might be at risk of having something poisonous mixed in. In which case, I could rest assured with a fresh, unopened bottle, even if it was a little bad. After telling everything to my friends, I finally realized that I could only trust them and the police. I'm really dumb. I thought I was thinking so hard, but I never actually understood anything. After all this time, I made things clear just by talking about them with my friends. I never had thought it would make such a big difference. So, what's your thoughts on this story, guys?
僕の話はこれで終わりなのです。
As I thought, everyone was staring at me with their mouths open in shock. Even Oishi wouldn't believe a story like this. You're underestimating Oishi's beliefs gauge. You're underestimating Oishi's belief gauge right there, Rika. Honestly, if Oishi heard of this, he'll probably go into the Irie Institute right now, guns blazing. But wait, would he go guns blazing on Irie? Yeah, he would go guns blazing on Irie. That's only normal. I'm sure I sound like a crazy person.
さとこ、僕たちが毎週、診療所に研究のお手伝いに行っていますですよね。あれは、入江の研究に協力しているだけではないのです。さとこの治療のためでもあったのです。
そうだ。そういえば、さとこが病気みたいなことを言ってたよな。
私が理科の話なら私だけじゃなく、この村に住むみんながその怪しげな病気にかかってることになるんじゃありませんの？でも、どうして私だけがお注射しなくちゃいけないんですの？監督の作っている新型の栄養剤の実験じゃないんでございますの？さとこは、一度、末期症状を迎えてしまっているのです。だから、日に2回のお注射がないと、すぐに症状がぶり返してしまうのです。入江は、さとこを救おうと、特に熱心に研究してくれていました。でも、毎日2回の注射をしなくてもいい体には、どうしても戻す方法が見つけられなかった。でも、いつか見つけると意気込んで、今日も熱心に研究を続けてくれていますです。冗談じゃないですわよ。私たち、監督の怪しげな研究に協力してお金をいただいてるんじゃありませんの？あんな注射、一生やれなんて冗談っぽいでございましたよ。
Satoko looked upset that she had been completely ignorant of all this. She also didn't want to accept the reality of having to manage her condition. Her fake laughter sadly echoed in everyone's ears. Keiichi opened his mouth to speak.
その注射を一回でもしないと、あの日みたいになるんだな。
There was a day where she forgot to take her shot. She convinced herself that the principal was her uncle. Her fear escalated, and she thought her uncle came inside the school to take her back home. Once she feels that way, there's no turning back for her.
そうです。だから、僕はさとこがお注射を忘れないように、毎日しつこく言っているのです。そんな、信じられませんわ。大体何なんですの、末期症状って。私だけそんなの嫌ですわよ。どうして私が、いつそんな末期症状になったって言うんですの？
Satoko's face contorted as tears began to flow from her eyes. I shouldn't have said this. Satoko is starting to remember something she's not supposed to.
ごめん、さとこ。思い出さなくていいのです。あれは事故なのです。さとこは何も悪くないのですよ。嘘ですわ。嘘ですわ。リカは全部嘘ばっかりなんですわ。
The others probably had no idea what Satoko was talking about. They don't need to know. They don't want to know about it, because they're her friends. Rena gently touched Satoko's shoulder. She gently touched mine too.
私たちは、リカちゃんの話、ちゃんと信じてるよ。ありがとうです。そして、今まで自分一人で、よくそれだけの大変なことを背負ってきたね。リカちゃんは偉いよ。たった一人で、今日まで 人に言えない秘密を背負ってきたんだね。
I never thought Rena would say something like that to me. My eyes were filling up with tears.
人に話せない秘密を背負うってのは悲しくて重いよね。私のはリカちゃんに比べたら全然大したことないけどさ。少しはわかるつもりだよ。
そうですね。お姉もよく頑張ってます。お姉になすりつけて楽させてもらってるから、よくわかりますよ。
みんなは、僕の話を疑わないのですか？
どうして疑うんだよ。全部信じるって言ったじゃねえか。むしろ、村の秘密が解けたような気がして、俺はすっきりしたくらいだぜ。その、ひなみ沢症候群という病気は感染症で、村に住んでる人はみんなかかってるのかな？
はい。みんななのです。でも、昔とは違います。鬼が淵村の頃に比べると、この病気はとてもおとなしくなりましたです。だから、別に遠くへ引っ越しても平気ですし、旅行だってへっちゃらなのです。
ただし、ものすごく低い確率で発症するってんだろ？俺、怖くてもう村を出られねえな。
もし病気にかかっても、簡単な心構えで病気は抑えられるのです。それは、とても簡単だけど、難しいこと。
If you think you might be suspicious of someone, don't be. Continue to trust in them. When you become too suspicious of someone, that suspicion will degenerate into a persecution complex, and it will be too late. So long as everyone stays friendly and united, we will never have to worry about this disease. This disease starts with anxiety. Modern people don't believe in curses the way people long ago did. That might be why we're more tolerant to the disease.
なんだ。なら私たちは全然平気だね。
だな。俺たちは仲間で、部活メンバーで、家族なんだぞ。間違っても仲間を疑ったりするもんか。だからリカちゃんの話、俺は丸ごと信じるぞ。そんなヤバい話をすれば、俺たちがその山犬って連中に消されるかもしれないって思って、ずっと言えなかったわけだろ？
I nodded quietly. I don't want to think that the mountain dogs have bugged this room. But if Okunogi overhears this conversation, they will definitely kill not only me, but all my friends tonight. That's true, no matter who my enemy is.
ま、だとすると、すぐに部活メンバーは臨戦態勢に入った方が良さそうだね。
Hell yeah, Mion!
状況を整理しよう。リカちゃんを殺すと大惨事になると信じてる連中が、リカちゃんの命を狙う可能性がある。間違いないね。
可能性でなく、必ず殺しに来ますです。どうかな？リカちゃんが切り札なら、そんな簡単に切っちゃう？そうでございますわよ。切り札は殿下の宝刀。向かないうちが花ですもの。
Satoko's eyes were still swollen, but she had stopped crying.
甘いですね、さとこ。切り札は2枚以上あるときに限り、すぐ1枚切ります。そうだね。人質は複数で初めて成立する。一人の人質の価値は複数の時に比べて格段に落ちるからね。
とにかく、向こうの状況がさっぱりわからねえ以上、殺されないなんて楽観はありえねえな。
Everyone nodded in unison.
みーちゃんは山犬って人たちをどう思う？敵かな？味方かな？
それは問題じゃないだろうね。僕は善良な狼ですって人に羊の番を頼むかい？
疑わしきは黒でございましたよ。その東京とかいう連中と全く関わりのない人たちに助けを求めた方がいいですわね。
I wonder who that could be.
だな。その意味では、リカちゃんが即警察に応援を求めたのは、迅速ないい判断ってことになるぜ。大石さんは、俺たちの味方なんだよな。
はい。大石には全てを話してはいませんので、僕の命を狙っているのを連続開始事件の犯人、つまり村人の誰かだと信じてるようです。大石さんにも真実を話した方がいいと思うな。大人の力は重要だよ。リスクのある一手ですわね。かえって嘘くさくなって手を引かれるとまずいんではありませんの？
いや、大石さんには話そう。あの人、今年が定年で、昔殺された友達の仇を討つ、最後のチャンスだって言ってた。だからきっと、どんな嘘くさい話でも、信じてくれると思うんだ。
That's what I've been saying! I've been saying this entire episode! No matter what you tell Wishi, even if you say it's aliens, he'll likely believe you. Well, Rena tried aliens and he didn't believe her, so most of the time he'll believe someone.
大石さんは、聡子ちゃんを助けるときにも、警察の立場でありながら、私たちに協力してくれた。頼もしい味方になってくれると思うな。
よし。大石には話そう。で、大石は今はしょ？
いえ、隣の県に行っています。高野の死体を確かめに。
ああ。隣の県の山の中でしたっけ？ドラム缶の中で黒焦げって話。でも、なんでわざわざ大石ともあろう人が直々なんでしょうね。
高野の死体が違う可能性があるらしいのです。現地の県警が協力的じゃなくて、あやふやなことを言ってるらしいです。
その山犬って連中は、機密保持と情報操作が仕事じゃなかったっけ？あたしはなんだかその死体おかしいなーって思うね。というかあの人、おとなしく焼いたくらいで死ぬとは思えないんだよね。
Oh, jeez!
もちろん、入江が黒幕で高野を殺した可能性もありますです。山犬のおこのぎはそうだと言っていますです。
監督が黒幕ってことはねえだろう。あの人は悪い人じゃねえと思うんだ。
そうですわよ。目と糸と発言禁止にしてくれれば基本的にはいい人でございますのよ。
私も、ひなみ沢ファイターズの幽霊マネージャーとして、監督は黒幕なんて玉じゃないと思います。どっちかというと、利用される感じの人です。
Oh?
いい人すぎるというか。
Great analysis, Shion. Great analysis.
はあ、誰も高野さんの肩を持ってあげない。
いやさ、監督と高野さん、どっちが悪い人ですかって聞かれたら、なあ。
高野さんが聞いたら怒りますわね。
Everyone laughed. as though we were in the middle of a club activity. If they're after my life, they will kill everyone here. It's very possible that they'll all get involved in this mess, and they know that. They all could still laugh. That they could all... I'm gonna repeat that. That they could all still laugh. That they could still laugh is really significant, I think. I started laughing along too.
客観的に見て、高野さんだけ隣の件で死体が見つかるのがすでにおかしいよ。富武さんを殺した風に偽装するなら、死体は絶対に見つからないところに隠す。山中で野焼きなんて見つけてくださいって言ってるようなもんだもん。
うん。レナもそう思うな。警察の管轄の及ばない県外で見つかった身元の確認しにくい焼死体を高野さんということにしようとしている気がする。その山犬って人たちはそういうのが本職なんでしょ？
なら、構図が見えてきたぞ。山犬ってのは高野さんの部下なんだろ？山犬の隊長は監督が黒幕なんだって主張してるんだろ？高野さんと山犬ってのはグルだな。
富武さんのあの死に方は監督が殺したと思わせるためなんですわね。そしてそれがわかるのは東京だけ。そして本当の黒幕の高野さんの死体も見つかり、監督は東京に2人を殺したことを疑われて濡れ衣を着せられる。なるほど、これはなかなか凝った罠でございますわね。爪がいまいちでございますけど。
その濡れ衣ってのにも山犬って連中が関わってそうだね。
なあ、そうと分かったら監督に直接話を聞いてみないか。その方が早いぞ。
そうだね。監督が真実を話してくれるか嘘をつくか、私目を見ればわかる。
ああ、レナさん嘘に敏感ですよね。
That warrants a slap. Ow!
入江は山犬が監視していると言ってましたです。電話しても出られないか話せないかかもしれませんです。
なんだなんだ、聞けば聞くほど監督は濡れ衣臭いぞ。というか監督の身に危険が迫ってるんじゃないのか？
うん。私が山犬で監督に濡れ衣を着せようと思ったなら、余計なことを言われる前にご退場願うね。
死体に口なしだね。どうしよう。大石は隣の県警の話が終わったらすぐに戻ってくると言ってましたです。だから時間はわかりませんが、今日必ず来てくれますのです。
As one, everyone glanced at the clock. It was already past 6:30 p.m. and starting to get dark.
なんだか腹が減ってきたと思ったらこんな時間なんだな。
We'd usually call it here if this was a normal day. But everyone decided to stay until Wishi came back and discussed what to do.
ごめんね、リカちゃん。電話借りてもいい？お父さんに帰りが遅くなるのを電話しないと。
そうだな。俺もお袋に電話しないとな。
あ、私もばっちゃんに今夜は出前でよろしくって電話しないとな。こんな時間に抜け抜けとそんなこと電話したら後でこってり絞られますね。あと警察の人たちの夕食も考えてあげないとね。本家のツケで寿司でも頼むかね。
Everyone had a sensitive reaction to the word sushi. Their stomachs were empty, after all. The same should be true of those officers, too.
リカ、うちも出前にしますの？そんなお金の余裕はありませんでしたよ。さとこ、みんなに自慢の野菜炒めでも作ってあげたらどうですか？無理ですわよ。こんな大勢になんか作ったことありませんわ。
さとこの野菜炒めか。指さえ入ってなけりゃぜひ食ってみたいな。
レナもさとこちゃんのお料理久しぶりに食べたいかな。
At that point, the phone rang.
もしもし、フルでなのです。
よかった。ご無事なようですね。大石です。高野さんの殺害現場の用事を終わらせましてね。今、沖宮に戻っている途中です。途中のガソリンスタンドから電話しています。
それで、高野の死体はどうでしたか？
やりましたよ。やっぱりそうでした。現地の県警の資料がとんでもないイージーミスをしていました。連中間違いを認めやしない。ガツンと決めてやりましたよ。
I would really like to see the scene of Oishi going to the Gifu police and practically just roasting them until they tell him that it wasn't Takano's body. Like, I want to see the scene of Oishi just grilling the hell out of them until they finally admit, we made a mistake. Sorry, dude. I would love to see a scene like that. Man, basically, any scene with Oishi has energy. But a scene of Oishi, actually owning people, that would have a lot of positive energy. Positive in the sense of, I'll just get excited because Oishi is like a guilty pleasure character. I'm gonna be honest here. I like Oishi as a guilty pleasure character to enjoy. I'm not for sure if I'm supposed to actually like Oishi, but he's like a guilty pleasure because of just his personality in general.
高野は車ごと行方不明です。富武殺しについて何か事情を知っている可能性が高いと判断し、つい先ほど高野の捜査を開始するよう指示を出したところです。ついにお社様のたたりの尻尾をつかみましたよ。ここから一気に引きずり出しちゃいます。
Oishi sounded so motivated. He'd finally found the hint he'd so desperately wanted. Could he actually solve the case, though?
それは土産話がとても楽しみなのです。
The Legend of Kurado Oishi.
これからクマちゃんと一緒にそちらへお伺いしますので、詳しい話を聞かせてください。
With Sidekick Kumagai.
心当たりでも、うさんくさい話でも何でも結構です。
はい。僕も全部話す決心がつきましたです。
おやおや、どんなお話が聞けるのでしょうかね。多分あと1時間ちょいぐらいでお伺いできると思います。ところで、受話器の向こうが賑やかですね。お友達も来ているのですか？
はい。みんな心配してうちに来てくれましたです。
そうですか。皆さんは本当に素晴らしいな。私も皆さんと一緒にいてくれた方がいいと思います。賑やかなだけで犯罪の抑止効果は大きいものです。では、今から向かいます。後ほど。
今の大石さんか？
はい。今から刑事と2人で来るそうです。はあ、この部屋にこんなに大勢なんて初めてだね。何人になるんだろう。
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ah, well, technically 9 because there's a specter floating around in the room.
私たち6人に2人来て8人ですの床が抜けそうで怖いですわね。
Oh.
9人目なのです。
Yes, you are.
羽生、聞いてた？なんだか今回は本当にすごいことになってきた。今回はいけそうですか？うん。いけるわ。絶対。絶対という言葉は、なって当然、ならなければ失望する悲しい言葉ですよ。羽生はこの状況になっても、やっぱり今日、死ぬと思う。でも、死んでほしくないと思っていますのです。あんたのスタンスはわかってるわ。傷つきたくないから信じない。マイナス思考ならマイナスで当然。ラッキーなら大喜びってわけだ。
You know, I just want one of the characters just to turn to Rika and ask, who the hell are you talking to, girl? I'm just wondering, like, is she saying this stuff out loud or in her head? Because if she's saying it out loud, if someone just overhears her talking to a random space, they will be a little bit confused.
もうあんたと私の考え方の違いをとやかく言わないわ。あんたは見てなさい。傍観者らしく。はい。僕は傍観者ですから。でも、リカを応援してますですよ。応援か。ありがとう。でも、応援していいの？応援したのに負けると、期待を裏切られない？リカが意地悪を言いますです。
We had a rather harmonious moon going. However, a feeling of unease was beginning to settle over us. Higurashi no Nakakor Nikai. Oh man, everything looks so happy right now. Everything looks like things are going to go Rika's way. But she couldn't be so wrong. Yes, we're getting to win. We're getting to win. Minagoroshi takes a turn. Oh man. Things seem so happy. But oh man, I'm actually getting really excited. Oh my god. Minagoroshi is an amazing arc. Minagoroshi is an amazing arc. But the sweeter the honeymoon, the higher the flames of despair rise when it all comes crashing down. Oh, I nailed it! I nailed that!
Okay.